Hello and welcome to the interview on France 24. I'm Stephanie Antoine speaking from Geneva in Switzerland at the Africa CEO Forum. Many business people have gathered here to discuss opportunities in Africa. And my guest is Daphne Mashilin-Kosi. She's the executive person for Kalahari Resources and Kalahari Manganese. Thank you so much for being with us. Your background is quite impressive. You were with your husband a strong anti-apartheid activist. You fought for women's rights, you were a community worker, and after that you became a businesswoman. You're the only African woman who actually runs a mine in South Africa, a manganese mine. What has been key in your success?
I think what has been key in my success is the fact that once we've been in the development space, I saw that there were a lot of investments that were actually made in my country, particularly in the mining sector, because mining is the backbone of the South African economy. But I was not seeing the benefits of actually having people mining in South Africa. All the social problems that we had, one was not able to actually get the companies to actually deal with them. And I thought, if one can actually start a company that will look at mining differently, because I had the background of being in the development space.
Your grandfather was a miner?
Yes. My grandfather was a miner. I was born in a place called Pilgrim's Rest, where gold was discovered in 1860. And for me, we needed to do mining differently. And I said, if I do it and become a model that will make sure that when we mine in our country, we look at some of the areas that are a problem, for instance, the social problems, create jobs, sustainability, the environment. If you look at the labor unrest in South Africa, it's really based on the fact that the miners themselves don't have accommodation and so on. And I felt that there was a need, maybe having the background in terms of the development aspect, that I would do things differently.
But you succeeded in being at the top. How tough was that?
I think it has been not easy. It's been a rough road, fraught with booby traps and limpet mines. And I'm using that strong to describe because it was not easy. So many doors have been closed on my face. I've been spit on, but I was focused. I knew that I had to do it for the women of our country, for the women of the continent and the world. The reason why I actually wanted to do it is that one was always reading about the fact that 90% of what women make goes back to society. And I saw the need to actually invest in women because in our company, we had a target of actually getting 50% of women participating in the mining sector.
And how are you going to do that, really?
You
fought for women's rights quite a bit, but it's a very hard target, isn't it?
It is a hard target, but we're turning the corner. I'll just give you a number of statistics. 10 years ago, if we were to go to one of the universities in South Africa in the engineering space, you'll find probably out of a class of 100, you'll find 10 or 5 were women. It has turned the corner. More than 52% of university graduates that are coming from the Wits School of Engineering are women. So we are actually beginning to see mining engineers, geologists, metallurgists that are women that are coming through. By the way, the experience that we are actually getting, we're finding women that have been working for your Anglo companies or your BHP Billiton, big companies that have 15 years experience. So if you look for them, you will find them.
And you actually were brought up by a single mother, and you said that it made you realize how much women bring to the family structure. Yes. Is that right?
What women bring into the social structure is they bring education to their children as a priority. They look at the softer things of how to improve the standard of living of ordinary people. They look at how to preserve the environment. They give life, and therefore they have to preserve life as well. So for them, it's not really about making money for themselves, but it's how best they can actually improve society.
In South Africa, and you said it, in the mining sectors in particular, there have been lots of social unrest, strikes. We all, of course, remember the tragic event of Marikana. What's your take on this?
My take is that if, for instance, we multiply the number of companies that look at mining differently, we will deal with some of the historical problems. Marikana was a story that was just about to happen, because if you look at South Africa, having been mined for many, many years, and I'll give one province for an example, where the diamonds were discovered in the Northern Cape. The big hole in Kimberley bears testimony to the environmental problems that were left behind. But above all, the population of that province is only 800,000 people. But it's the poorest of the poor, where diamond was found in the province. The biggest iron ore mine is found in that province.
So what should be done, actually?
I think social investment is key. As you mine out the minerals, you need to look at the social needs of the community, the infrastructural needs of the community, the health development needs of the community.
But who does it, really?
As we know that government's responsibility is to give basic services, but as the private sector, as we budget for our own, we need to look at communities that are around the areas that we're actually mining in. We have a responsibility to do it.
Do you think the private sector actually could be that responsible in South Africa? Is that how you see it?
I think we are. Legislation does prescribe in South Africa. When you apply for a license to mine, you are expected to subscribe to the Mining Petroleum Resources Development Act, which prescribes that you need to have a social and labor plan. What does the social and labor plan entails? That what are the social projects that you are going to leave behind? What are your labor policies? Do you have a project labor agreement that prescribes that you need to make sure that you employ people in the local areas, that you create opportunities for them, that you develop SMEs in those areas, that you actually invest in the infrastructure in the areas that you participate. As you build a road to go to the mine, you build also a road to go to the communities.
So is that your goal, actually? You talk about inclusive growth. Is that what you mean?
Yes, it's not inclusive growth. It's responsibility to subscribe to the social and labor plan. As you eat well, you need to sleep well as well. Because for me, I couldn't understand how you can actually take the minerals and leave people in the area with nothing, not even infrastructure, not even with skills transfer, because as you look at the Northern Cape in particular, it is a mining province. So what is it that we need to do? We need to train people. Which skills are you going to give them? Because it's key, it's important, mining-related skills, so that whether your company is there or any other company that will come will be in a position to actually employ those people, give them opportunity, so that the local economic development of those particular areas can actually grow and contribute, by the way, to the GDP.
Do you belong to a minority when you actually say that, as someone who runs a mine in South Africa?
It's a challenge. People do want to actually go into mining and make a difference. But the problem is that we need to make sure that in Africa we can have infrastructure that can actually develop entrepreneurs. How do we develop entrepreneurs? Do we fund them? How do we fund them? We need to look at risk differently.
And you need funding, probably. Yeah. And South Africa is actually now one of the so-called fragile five, and investors are not so keen on coming these days. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not sure where the statistics are coming from. I see a lot of investments. I mean, I've been raising capital, and I don't have challenges in terms of raising capital. And I see my peers as well being able to raise funding. And people are quite keen to actually invest in South Africa. So it's really beauty lying in the eyes of the beholder.
Your company has been involved in a court case with ArcelorMittal, which is a partner. What is at stake and what is happening right now?
The court case was really based on ArcelorMittal having to contribute their shareholder proportionally. And that was that we wanted to force them to actually put in the money that they were supposed to put in because the other shareholders have. So they did put in their money. They were ordered by the court to do it. and there are no issues now. The last 2 years, we've been developing the project together, and there are no issues anymore.
No issues anymore.
Yeah.
Elections are coming up in South Africa. Jacob Zuma is the favorite candidate, despite criticism on his policy and on corruption. What do you think is at stake for this particular election?
I think South Africa, remember, we were only liberated 20 years ago, and this is our fourth election, and we're given an opportunity to actually, our vote is our voice, and therefore if the electorate in South Africa chooses whoever, it's a democracy. Unfortunately, we have to be, abide by the decisions that we took with the Bill of Rights, and we agreed that if we choose him, he's going to be our president. Whether people agree with him or not, whether external countries or internal are unhappy, unfortunately we are a democracy, we are going through elections, we have an independent electoral commission, and if he is there, South Africans have chosen him.
It's a democratic process.
It is a democratic process.
And what's your take on corruption in South Africa?
I think corruption is also relative. There's a corruptor and a corruptee. So where there's corruption, there's someone who's actually perpetuating that corruption. And I think in most cases you look at African countries, but people who are actually coming to corrupt our leaders are not coming from South Africa, for instance, in our case. And for me, corruption, human nature does dictate that there's no country in the world that can actually say they don't have corrupt people. So human nature does dictate that people will come from different backgrounds.
It's not a key problem, a key issue.
It is a key issue. It is worrying us in business, but it's something that we need to not complain about it. Do something about it.
Thank you so much, Daphne Mashinins-Kosi, and thanks to you for watching. Stay with us.